So we're joined now by one of the most prolific composers and artists to come out of Italy, especially in the world of jazz music, releasing several classic albums that have now touched many generations. Marco De Marco is with us live and direct from Bologna. And Marco, it is an absolute pleasure to have you join us today.
Thank you so much, Mark, for this interview. I enjoy very much about this opportunity to be a guest on your broadcast. Thank you very much, and I say hello to all the listeners, all my friends in Canada, and to all my fans.
And you do have a lot of fans here, but so much to go over with you, considering the body of work that you've released over the years, your background, as well as the country that you're from, and the history of the genre that you play in. Can you tell us a little bit about your musical background, like especially how you made the transition from a student of classical music into jazz, and also making the decision to make a career as a musician in a genre that may not have been the most popular, especially during that time in Italy?
As you know, that I studied classic music in my youth, and I was a child of 6 when my short and tiny fingers started on my keyboard, and in my late teen I studied harmony and composition in depth with the eminent maestro Giordano Noferini. About my love for jazz music, I can say to you that I remember that I was 17 when a performance of the Oscar Peterson Trio complete astonished my mind of musician. I couldn't believe in so quick and perfect technique of him. It's funny, you know, but nothing before that even struck my imagination so deeply. From then on, jazz came into my life.
Very nice. So I know this may be a bit before your time, but from a historical perspective, we know that there was anti-American cultural policy of the fascist regime in the 1930s, and we think that this would have affected the musical community as well, especially in jazz, which kind of had like the reputation of being an evil music of sorts. But Romano, Benito's son, was an accomplished jazz pianist. Did jazz lose its popularity in Italy around this time, or was it something that was just completely exaggerated?
Really, because jazz music was outlawed. People listened to it as a great secret. It was a forbidden pleasure, you know. At the time, jazz listening happened through VDs coming to Italy with American soldiers, and its popularity increased very soon. Romano Mussolini started his career of musician in the 50s. He was a kind man, an accomplished jazz pianist, and my good friend. You know, as he used to say frequently, much modestly, I owe my notoriety abroad as a musician, especially in the States, to my name and to the history of my family.
Well, he definitely has done a lot for jazz, you know, both in Europe and in the U.S. We fast forward to 2007, though. Almost all Italian music conservatories have jazz departments. Mostly every medium-sized city in Italy has a jazz club. And, of course, the many musical festivals put on each year, such as the one in Perugia. Is jazz alive in Italy today, and how can it be better supported?
Well, jazz in Italy has a good following of fans whose Umbria, Pescara and Bergamo jazz festivals, and also now in Bologna, and summer performances increase the audience. Certainly the most important years of jazz in Italy were, you know, the 60s and the 70s, with the presence of the greatest jazz maestros. At the present time, perhaps of my mind of musician, I find an audience very frequently absent and of specific short musical education, without any cleverness of widening and of a personal appreciation. I fear it's a very hard problem to solve.
And it's something that we definitely have going on here within our jazz community. Now, in listening to your work over the years, we hear a number of influences, like, the bossa nova sound, modal jazz, funky soul jazz. Can you tell us a little bit about your musical influence, both in terms of artists and specific records that maybe would have inspired you?
Yes, as a pianist and composer, I allowed myself to be influenced by the great jazz maestros that I was lucky enough to listen to and play together. I was very lucky, and happy with many jazz pianists as Bill Evans, Keith Jarrett, Martial Solar, Gordon Beck, Jack Riley, and Jimmy McNeely, also Joe Gervanitas, spent many hours on my Steinway grand piano at home, giving me unforgettable moments of pleasure, learning, and deep friendship. Their precious teachings have exaggerated my musical education. As for me, I always looked for an original way of my musical style. It's a long list of musicians that I enjoyed to play with. Only if you names Chris Woods, of course, Dexter Gordon, Art Blakey, Chet Baker, Lee Konitz, and Stan Getz.
Very nice, and we're going to speak a little bit about Chris Woods a little bit later on. Now, you released your first record in 1970, Autunno in Parigi. What were your expectations, both musically and professionally, for that release?
Well, Autunno a Parigi is my first album that I recorded in Paris in trio with Jackie Sanson on bass and Charles Audrey on drums. It's always in my heart, Perhaps it's the first, it's perhaps for that I enjoy very much to listen to and to speak about this wonderful experience, my first in my life and my first in Paris. Many years have already passed from then, but all my emotions of those days are always alive in my mind. We spent one only day, in the recording studio in Paris in the Pigalle Quarter. And at 2 o'clock in the night, as by magic, all my new compositions were ready on the master tape. It was an excellent work together, my wonderful partners, Jackie and Charles, in a perfect agreement, I think, with them.
Yo, this is Shannon Harris of Urbanicity. You're listening to The New Beginning Show with Mark R. on 105.5 FM. Shra.